Hello students, I am Lalita as Humraskar, economics teacher, BYK College of Commerce welcomes you in online expert lecture series organized by BYK College of Commerce for class 12th. Today I am going to discuss with you important concepts related to your syllabus. So here I am going to cover first three chapters. Chapter number 1, Introduction to Micro and Macroeconomics. Chapter number 2, Utility Analysis. And chapter number 3a, that is Demand Analysis. Now let us see the chapter number 1. Here I selected one important feature of microeconomics, that is partial equilibrium analysis, that is also known as partial equilibrium approach. So what is partial equilibrium approach? It isolates an individual unit from other forces and studies its equilibrium independently. That is known as a partial equilibrium analysis, or in other words you can say like this. In microeconomics, primary step is independence. After that, it tries to show functional relationship between two variables. That is known as partial equilibrium analysis. Now let us explain partial equilibrium analysis with the help of example. Here statement of the law of demand is given. What is the statement of the law of demand? Other things remaining constant, when price falls, demand rises, and when price rises, demand falls. So here what is independent step here? In microeconomics, primary step is independence. So here independent step is other things remaining constant, and after that microeconomics tries to show functional relationship between two variables. What are two variables here? Price and quantity demanded. So here there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by keeping other things constant. It means law is based on certain assumptions or conditions. Okay, so this is known as a partial equilibrium analysis in microeconomics. Now let us see the next feature of, here I selected feature of macroeconomics, that is general equilibrium analysis. What is general equilibrium analysis? Macroeconomics deals with the behavior of large aggregates and their functional relationship. So in macroeconomics, primary step is everything depends on everything else. That is a primary assumption in macroeconomics. Now let us see general equilibrium analysis with the help of example. Savings are connected to investment, investments are connected to capital formation, and finally all these macroeconomic variables are connected to national income. So general equilibrium means everything depends on everything else. It means all macroeconomic variables are connected with each other. There is an interconnection between them, that is known as a general equilibrium analysis, and that is very important feature of macroeconomics. Now let us see the next topic. Here I selected, that is features of microeconomics. All of you know what is microeconomics. Microeconomics means microscopic study of economic behavior of individual unit. For example, particular household, firm, industry, and so on. Now let us see the features of microeconomics. Here points are given. Number 1, study of individual unit. Microscopic study of economic behavior of individual unit. Okay, that is a feature of microeconomics. So it studies the individual unit, for example particular household, firm, industry, and so on. Now let us see the second feature. What is a methodology used in microeconomics? That is slicing method. We use slicing method while studying microeconomics. What is slicing method? Slicing method means take aggregate and cut into different slices. That is known as a slicing method. Suppose I want to know market concept in detail. Market is classified on the basis of place, on the basis of competition, and on the basis of period. There are different forms of market. So these are the different individual unit under one aggregate, that is market. So which method I use here? I use here slicing method. Now let us see the third feature of microeconomics, partial equilibrium analysis. What is partial equilibrium analysis? In microeconomics, primary step is independence, and after that it tries to show functional relationship between two variables. That is known as a partial equilibrium analysis. Next feature of microeconomics, number 4, is marginalism. Okay, so which principle used by the microeconomics? That is marginalism principle. What is marginalism? It means change brought about in total, that is by marginal unit. Now let us see the next feature, vision. What is a vision of microeconomics? That is worm's eye view. What is worm's eye view? In microeconomics, we study a single tree and not a whole forest. Okay, so here we studies an individual unit and not the whole economy. So vision of microeconomics is worm's eye view. Number 6 is allocation of resources. Microeconomics deals with allocation of resources. What are basic economic problems? What are microeconomic problems? What to produce, how to produce, and to whom it is to be allocated. And why this problem arises? Because human wants are unlimited and resources are limited. How to solve this problem? That solution in the hands of microeconomics. Okay, so here microeconomic deals with allocation of resources. Number 7, microeconomics based on certain assumptions. Okay, all microeconomic theories or laws, they are based on certain assumptions. Now let us see some assumptions here. Pure capitalism, rationality. Okay, so these are some important assumptions in microeconomics. What is pure capitalism? Pure capitalism means economic power is concentrated in the hands of few people. Rationality, consumer should be rational here. Okay, laissez-faire policy, that is also important assumption. It means government cannot interfere in market condition. Okay, but these assumptions are unrealistic because they ignore real economic world. So microeconomics is based on certain assumptions, but they are unrealistic and they ignore real economic world. So this is also feature of microeconomics. Now let us see the next feature. Microeconomics is also known as price theory because price is a core element, that is a basic element. Other determinants are also important, but price is a basic element. Okay, so microeconomics is also known as price theory. Next one, number 9, limited scope. Microeconomics has limited scope. Why? Because microeconomics ignore major economic problems in the country. For example, poverty, unemployment, population explosion, inflation, inequality, and so on. So there is no solution in the hands of microeconomics to solve these major economic problems. Therefore, it has limited scope. Number 10, analysis of different market structure. Microeconomics analyzes different market structure. For example, what is monopoly market, what is monopolistic competition, what is pure competition, what is perfect competition, and so on. So these are the 10 important features of microeconomics. Now let us see the next topic in this chapter, and that is features of macroeconomics. All of you know what is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics means study of aggregate, study of large, that is macroeconomics. Let us see first feature, study of aggregate. What we studies in macroeconomics? Aggregates. For example, total saving, total investment, GDP, GNP, what is national income. So study of aggregates means macroeconomics. Second feature of macroeconomics, that is lumping method. That is a methodology of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics uses lumping method. It means entire economy is divided into big lumps, or you can say in sectors, for study of aggregates. That is known as a lumping method. Number 3, general equilibrium analysis. What is primary assumption in macroeconomics? Everything depends on everything else. It means all macroeconomic variables, they are dependent on each other. There is interconnection between them. That is known as a general equilibrium analysis. Next one, vision. What is the vision of macroeconomics? That is bird's eye view. So here we studies Not a single tree, but a whole forest, whole country, whole nation. So, what is the vision of macroeconomics? Bird's eye view. Now let us see the next feature, feature number 5, income and employment theory. Macroeconomics is also known as income and employment theory. Why? Because national income and general employment, these are two important tasks in macroeconomics because other macroeconomic variables like saving, investment, GDP, GNP, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, they are finally connected to national income and general employment. That's why macroeconomics is also known as income and employment theory. Number 6 is macroeconomics is a policy oriented subject. Why it is policy oriented subject? Because macroeconomics is useful to government in making various government policies. For example, export import policy, agricultural policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, etc. Why government implement various policies to achieve certain goals, and what are they? Economic growth, economic development, social justice, economic justice, control on infant mortality rate, and so on. So macroeconomics is useful to government in making various policies. That's why macroeconomics is also known as policy oriented subject. Now, next feature number 7, that is macroeconomic deals with short period and long period analysis. If we said economic growth, so economic growth is what? That is a rise in real national income over a long period of time. So here how many years we assume over a long period of time means 10 years. So here macroeconomics deals with short period analysis. And when I said economic development. What is economic development? Quantitative plus qualitative changes in certain variables over a long period of time, that is known as economic development. So for over a long period of time means how many periods we assume for economic development? 100 years. So here when I said economic development, so here macroeconomic deals with long period analysis. Okay, now let us see the next feature, that is neglect of heterogeneity. Macroeconomics neglects heterogeneity. If my argument is or my statement is poverty in India is decreasing, but still 20% of India's population they live below poverty line. Okay, so my statement is not applicable to different individual units. So here macroeconomics neglect heterogeneity. So these are important features of macroeconomics. Now let us see what kind of question possible in your exam. Let us see the question. Such type of question is possible for 8 marks question. Answer in detail. That is the last question in your question paper. What is microeconomics? And explain features of microeconomics. Now how to write down the answer? First write down the introduction about microeconomics. Okay, number 2, write down definition of microeconomics given by the economist, and after that explanation of all features of microeconomics in detail. Now let us see the next example. This is also essay type question for 8 marks. Let us see the question. What is macroeconomics? Explain features of macroeconomics. Let us see how to write down the answer. Number 1, introduction about macroeconomics. Number 2, definition of macroeconomics given by the economist. Write accurate name of the economist. Don't change the language of definition. Number 3, explanation of all features of macroeconomics in detail. Now let us see the second chapter, that is utility analysis. All of you know what is utility? Utility and usefulness both are different concepts in economics. Then what is utility? Utility is a capacity of commodity to satisfy human want. So here I selected important topic under utility analysis, that is relationship between total utility and marginal utility. So such kind of question is possible for 4 marks question. Answer the following question. So how to write down the answer here? First you have to write definition of total utility, formula of total utility, definition of marginal utility, and formula to obtain marginal utility. After that, second point is you have to draw a schedule and its explanation that you have to write. And number 3, you have to draw a diagram with the help of schedule, and you have to write explanation of the diagram. Now let us see here schedule given here, which shows relationship between total utility and marginal utility. When consumer consume first unit of commodity, total utility is 10 and marginal utility is 10. So let us see the observation of this schedule. So at initial stage, at the beginning, both TU and MU are the same. When consumer consumes second unit of commodity, total utility goes on rising. Okay, so it is increase up to 18 when, okay. And what happened to marginal utility? With the consumption of additional unit of commodity, marginal utility goes on falling. Okay, so first observation of this schedule is, at the beginning both TU is equal to MU, both are equal. Okay, when consumer consume second, third, fourth, fifth, up to seventh unit, total utility here goes on rising. Okay, and marginal utility goes on falling. This is second observation. Now when consumer consumes sixth unit of commodity, total utility is 30 and marginal utility becomes 0. Okay, and when we join this point, we get the point of satiety, that is maximum satisfaction of the consumer. And when consumer consume after point of satiety, TU goes on falling but at diminishing rate, and marginal utility becomes negative, that is -2. Now let us see the relationship between total utility and marginal utility with the help of graph. Let us see, on y-axis we measure total utility and marginal utility, and on x-axis we measure units of commodity. Okay, let us see first observation of this graph. First observation is, let us see the slope of the TU curve. TU curve goes on rising and MU curve goes on falling. It means it slopes downward from left to right. When TU is maximum, when consumer consumes sixth unit of commodity, TU becomes maximum and MU touches x-axis, that is x is equal to 0. And when we join these points, we get point of satiety, right? When consumer consume after point of satiety, MU goes to negative area, which is shown by the shaded lines. Okay, that is also known as disutility region or dissatisfaction area. Now let us see the next topic in second chapter, that is in utility analysis, law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so here some important points are given under this law. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, statement of the law. Number 3, assumptions of the law. Number 4, schedule and its explanation. Number 5, diagram and its explanation. And number 6, exceptions of the law. So these are the important points under the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now let us see the statement of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Other things remaining constant, as consumer consume more and more units of commodity, its marginal utility goes on falling. Now let us see the assumption. So here law is based on certain assumptions or conditions. First one is a rationality. Consumer should be rational. He or she aims at maximum satisfaction. Number 2, utility can be measured in cardinal numbers. So that is cardinal measurement. Number 3, homogeneity. Whatever unit consumed by the consumer should be homogeneous in shape, size, color. Number 4, continuity. There is no time gap between the consumption of 2 units of commodity. Number 5, reasonability. Whatever units consumed by the consumer should be reasonable size, not too big, not too small. Number 6, constancy. There is no change in taste preferences of the society. Number 7, divisibility. Whatever units consumed by the consumer should be divisible. And number 8 is single bond. So these are the assumptions on which law of diminishing marginal utility is based. Now let us see explanation of the law of diminishing marginal utility with the help of this schedule. Let us see, when consumer consume first unit of commodity, marginal utility is 10. When further consumer consumes second unit, marginal utility goes on falling, that is up to 8. When consumer consume third unit, marginal utility becomes 6. When consumer consume fourth unit, marginal utility becomes 4. When consumer consume fifth unit, marginal utility falls to 2. When consumer consumes sixth unit of commodity, marginal utility becomes 0. And when consumer consume seventh unit of commodity, marginal utility becomes negative. Okay, so what is the observation of this schedule? With the consumption of additional unit of commodity, marginal utility goes on falling. Now let us see the explanation of the schedule with the help of diagram. Let us see, on y-axis we measure marginal utility and on x-axis we measure units of commodity X. Okay, when consumer consume first unit of commodity, mu is 10. When consumer consume second unit of commodity, mu is 8. When consumer consume third unit, mu becomes 6. When consumer consume fourth unit, mu becomes 4. When consumer consume fifth unit, marginal utility becomes 2. And when consumer consume sixth unit, marginal utility becomes 0. And when consumer consume further, marginal utility goes to negative area, that is known as a disutility region or dissatisfaction area. Now let us see the exceptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Number 1, hobbies. Number 2, miser. Number 3, addiction. Number 4, power. Number 5, money. So these are the exceptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility. But why? Because in this case, with the consumption of additional unit of commodity, mu goes on rising and not falling. Now let us see what kind of question is possible in the exam. Answer the following question. This is short answer question for 4 marks. Let us see the question. Explain law of diminishing marginal utility. How to write down the answer? Number 1, introduction is must here. Number 2, statement of the law. Number 3, schedule and its explanation. Number 4, diagram and its explanation. And number 5, you have to write only the names of assumptions. Now let us see answer in detail. This is essay type question. Let us see the question. State and explain law of diminishing marginal utility with its exceptions. Okay, let us see how to write down answers. Answer here. Number 1, introduction point, that is very important. Number 2, statement of the law. Number 3, schedule and its explanation. Number 4, diagram and its explanation. Number 5, you have to explain exceptions in detail. And number 6, you have to write only names of assumptions. So this is 8 marks question. Now let us see the next essay type question. State and explain law of diminishing marginal utility with its assumptions. Let us see which point should come in your answer. Number 1, introduction point. Number 2, statement of the law. Number 3, schedule and its explanation. Number 4, diagram and its explanation. Number 5, assumptions in detail. And you have to write finally names of exceptions. Okay. Now let us see the next chapter, that is chapter number 3a, demand analysis. What is demand? What is the formula of demand? Demand is equal to desire plus willingness to purchase and ability to pay. So demand means suppose at this moment I want car but I don't have money. So that is my desire only, my dream only. Okay. So what is demand exactly? Demand is an effective desire which is backed by ability to pay and willingness to spend. Now let us see the next concept in chapter number 3a, that is individual demand schedule. What is individual demand schedule? How can you define individual demand schedule? It is a tabular presentation showing inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by a single consumer in the market within a given period of time. Let us see this schedule. When price is 10, quantity demanded is 1 kilogram. When price falls to 8, quantity demanded rises to 2 kilogram. And further, when price falls to 6, quantity demanded rises to 3. So it shows what there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now let us see the next concept. in chapter number 3A, that is market demand schedule. How can you define market demand schedule? Market demand schedule is a tabular presentation showing inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by all consumers in the market within a given period of time. Now let us see the market demand schedule. Here we assume more than one consumer, consumer A, consumer B and consumer C, and finally in last column they given summation of demand by all three consumers, we get the market demand. Okay, so here again there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by all consumers in the market. Now let us see the very important topic in this chapter, that is law of demand. Okay, number 1 is introduction, number 2 statement of the law, number 3 assumptions, number 4 schedule and its explanation, number 5 diagram and its explanation, and number 6 what are exceptions of the law of demand. Let us see what kind of question is possible in your exam. This is essay type question, 8 marks question. That is a last question, that is a question number 6 in your theory paper. State and explain law of demand with its assumptions. Let us see which point should come in your answer. They ask you have to explain, state and explain law of demand with its assumptions. First point is introduction point, number 2 statement of the law, number 3 schedule and its explanation, number 4 diagram and its explanation, number 5 explanation of all assumptions in detail, and finally very important point, write only names of exceptions. Let us see next essay type question, state and explain law of demand with its exceptions. This is also essay type question, 8 marks question, that is a last question in your theory paper. Let us see which point should come in your answer. Number 1 introduction, number 2 statement of the law, number 3 schedule and its explanation, number 4 diagram and its explanation, number 5 explanation of exceptions in detail, and number 6 write only names of assumptions. Now here I selected one important question in your textbook. Such type of question is possible in question number 5. What is the headline of question number 5? Study the following schedule, diagram and passage and answer the following questions. This is 4 marks each. You have to attempt any 2 out of 3. So total marks for this question is 8 marks. Right? Now let us see this figure. You have to observe this figure and answer the following questions. In this figure, in this diagram, at price OP, quantity demanded is OQ. Okay, original demand curve, that is a downward sloping demand curve, is a DD. Okay, when demand curve shift to the right hand side, that is D1 D1, and when demand curve shift to the left hand side, that demand curve is known as a D2 D2. Now let us see first question they ask here, rightward shift in the demand curve. Okay, rightward shift in the, when demand curve shift to the right hand side, okay, that is known as, what is the answer here? That is D1 D1, which indicates what? Increase in demand. Okay, that is the answer. Second question they say, this is leftward shift in the demand curve, that is a D2 D2. So demand curve shift to the left hand side, which indicates what? Decrease in demand. Number 3, price remains, what is the answer? Dash, they given here, put dash, that is constant. Price remain constant here. And number 4 they ask, increase and decrease in demand comes under dash, that comes under change in demand. There are 2 important concepts in chapter number 3A, that is variation demand and change in demand. So this figure, this question is related to change in demand, and there are 2 types of change in demand. Increase in demand and decrease in demand. So students, what I cover today, I cover first 3 chapters. Okay, important concepts I covered related to first 3 chapters. And finally, thank you for listening my video lecture.